Hey folks, this is Meredith from the Papery Craftery, and today we are jumping into winter. We are starting our winter crafts. So I'm going to be showing you one of the ways today that I make evergreen boughs, branches, leaves, sprigs, however you want to describe them. We're going to be making evergreens today. The supply list for this project is pretty short, but they're all pretty important. You're going to need some brown strips for the stem. I have light brown from Quilled Creations. The green of your choosing. I have a dark green here from Quilled Creation that works really well. And then I also have a leaf green from Craft Harbor that I like a lot. You need pins, super important, glue, some small scissors will come in handy, and then if you have a workboard with some wax paper, that's a good idea too. The first thing we're going to do is make this stem for the evergreen branch. So to do that, you're going to take one of your brown strips, whatever kind you're using, and you're going to want to double it up to make it nice and thick. If you have not seen my video on on-edge quilling and why I double up the strips and how exactly that I do that, I'm going to link it above right now in this video. So I would stop over there first just to see exactly all the steps and why you might want to think about doubling up your strips for this project too. You're really going to need a nice strong branch to hold all of the evergreen needles that we're going to put on it in just a bit. Once you have your branch all ready to go, you're going to want to grab your workboard that's already been covered with a piece of wax paper and grab your pins. Now this brown strip that I made from the whole piece is probably just too long for this demo. You could make it that long if you want to, but for time's sake we're going to be making an evergreen branch that's about 4 or 5 inches long. And I'm going to now take the green strip that I choose for this project. Again, I'm going to be using that leaf green from Craft Harbor paper, and I'm going to take an entire strip. These are the real long ones, about 22 inches, and I'm just going to take a little bit off of one end because I like to start with torn edges. It always makes the glue a little bit smoother and makes the edges stick a little bit nicer. And I'm going to make a very small loop, and that loop is about how long my pine needles are going to be on this branch. So it's probably about 3/4 of an inch. Add a little bit of the glue and pinch that to stay. See, my loop is still pretty open. That's exactly what I want it to look like. And now I'm going to put a little bit of glue right where that loop meets the other part of the strip that it's on and attach my branch right to it. So it's going to be a loop with the tail of the rest of the paper, and then my branch is going to be there as well. I just want the glue right where the brown paper meets the green. I don't want to add any more so that the rest of that strip sticks. I want that to be out to the side. And then I'm going to put it on my workboard and I'm going to start pinning it in place so none of that moves. There's my pins. These are just standard straight pins you get from a sewing supply store or a craft store or anything like that. These are nothing special. What I want to do is I'm going to put my pins in a way so that the brown branch stays straight and stays in place. So you can see here I'm going to put pins on either side of it just to really keep it where I want it to be. It's also a good idea perhaps to put a pin on that top loop, and that will keep that one nice and straight as well. At this point we are going to start making our pine needles. So you're going to pull the rest of your strip up and away and put a pin approximately the same length as that first loop. Add a little bit of glue on your stem, bring your strip back down so it meets the stem, and pin it into place. That right there is another pine needle. We're going to keep doing that same motion over and over again. Pull it up at an angle, put a pin again about as long as the rest of your pine needles are going to be. All those loops should be about the same size. A little bit of glue on the branch, and then bring it back over so the paper strip meets the glue on the branch. And then repeat and repeat and repeat. This seems like a lot. It actually ends up going very, very quickly once you get the hang of it. The trick though is to try to get all of those pine needles at an angle and try to keep them all around the same size. I'm gonna keep repeating the same motion until I get to the end of this strip. It seems like a lot, but it's only going to get me to about halfway down this stem. So now I have used that entire long strip of the leaf green paper, and you can see where I finished it off there with some glue and a pin right at the end of the strip. Now let's say you want to keep going, you want to add more evergreen needles and your paper is run out. You can start adding more again by making another loop on a separate piece of paper about the same size as the rest and putting a bit of glue and attaching it right there at the base. And then you can keep going, making the needles the same way with the pins. But now we're going to say that that's enough for one side, and we're going to start putting some pine needles on the other side. So I have that same loop that I just made to demonstrate how to add more on the one side, and I'm going to start and have that be the first loop on the second side. And so I'm going to add some glue to my stem, pin it in place, and then to make sure that I'm keeping everything on an angle, I'm going to pin that first needle on an angle as well. After you have that first loop in place, you're going to continue pulling your strip up to the side, wrapping it around a pin, adding some glue to the branch, and pinning the strip back in place again to make more needles on the other side, just like you did in the beginning. And then this is what it looks like with both sides done about the same amount of needles. And it looks sort of like a crazy mess. And I get that. It's a lot of pins and it looks kind of wacky, but you just got to trust the process. Everything is fine. You can go ahead and start taking your pins out. It might be easiest if you hold your pine needles down with one finger and try to pull them out. You notice I'm not being super careful here. I'm just kind of yanking them out. You can go one at a time. That may be for the best, but just for sake of time, I'm just kind of pulling them all out here just to get to the next step. Once all your pins are gone, you can go ahead and use a needle tool or something like that to go ahead and pry your evergreen branch off of your wax paper. And I had a little mishap here, but I left it in just because I wanted to show you that it could happen. A little bit of the wax paper stuck to the back of my branch, and that's okay. Sometimes that happens when you use a lot of pins. The glue can kind of seep in and just not allow your piece to come off the wax paper as much as it normally would. But you can see here it just peeled right off. A little bit left behind, but once you mount this on something, you're not even going to see it. So this is where the real trick to turning these branches into actual evergreens comes in. What you want to do is pinch all the way down the entire branch towards the tip, and that's going to shape your needles, and it's also going to flatten those loops, which is going to make them look more like pine needles. If you want to, you can give your branch a little bit of bend like that one. And that's all there is to it. I also wanted to show some variations on the evergreen so you can kind of play around with this idea and make it a little bit more your own. So the first one is the one that I just made, and everything is pushed down nicely, and again I put a little bit of a curve in it just to show that that is an option, but just very standard evergreen kind of thing. And then I also made this one very similar, but this is a little bit of a darker green, a little bit fuller. I feel like these pine needles are a little bit longer, so it makes it just look a bit more fuller and a little bit stubbier. And then here's another option as well. First of all, I didn't bend these and pinch them as much, so they do have more of an open look to them. But I just wanted to show how I added extra branches to make it look like, obviously it has 3. So it's really just 3 versions of the exact same thing, and then I just glued the stems together at the bottom. And if you want to add a little berries, that is okay too. I do have more on this project on my website, and I will link to that original post in the description box down below. And I do have another video coming out very soon about another way to use evergreen branches to make a tree. So you want to keep watching for that one. Once you get the hang of these branches, I promise you, they do go quickly. You will need a bit of paper though, and you will need a little bit of time, especially if you're planning on making these into a wreath or some sort of larger project. That's why we're doing this one a little bit early. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions about evergreens or any other quilling projects, go ahead and leave me that comment down below, and I'll answer it as soon as I can. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.